Morning, MGTOW. Walking away from society was a tough choice for me. It meant not only stepping away from women in relationships, but also trying to escape oppressive capitalism. It's much cheaper, for me anyway, to be single than it ever was in a relationship. Women have cost me a small fortune over the years. But it seems I can't avoid the capitalist monster completely. It may be smarter than I thought it was. Let's check out this article. It's from Vox. It says, "The escalating cost of being single in America. Why is life in this country so hostile to single people?" By Anne Helen Peterson. Think about your household's monthly expenses. There are big ticket items, your rent or mortgage, your health care, maybe a student loan. Then there's the smaller stuff, utility bills, internet and phone bills, Netflix, Hulu, and all your other streaming subscriptions. If you drive a car, there's gas and insurance. If you take the subway, there's public transit pass. You pay for food and household items like toilet paper and garbage bags and light bulbs. You buy furniture and sheets and dishes. Now imagine paying for all these things completely on your own. If you live by yourself or as a single parent or caregiver, you don't have to imagine. This is your life. All the expenses of existing in society on one set of shoulders. For more than 40 million people who live in this kind of single income household, it's also become increasingly untenable. When we talk about all the ways it's become harder and harder for people to find solid financial footing in the middle class, we have to talk about how our society is still set up in a way that makes it much easier for single people to fall through the cracks. Now, it said 40 million people live on one income. That's tough, man. I have to say, I'm used to paying all the bills. Even when I was in a relationship, my income seemed to be the only one that was available to pay the rent. Single people should, in theory, be the purest embodiment of American values, self-sufficiency and individualism. That they're not speaks to the fact that we don't venerate the individual. We venerate the individual family. The family fosters the conditions for the individual's success. The spouse helps create the conditions that make success possible. Children keep the individual grounded, focused, and humble, which is why so many narratives of individual success either start with the family already firmly in place or it ends with it. So maybe this is why there's so many men walking away. No one can find a partner that helps create conditions for their success. You know, females always seem to do more harm than good. Some single people love being single. Some are fairly ambivalent about it, and others despise it. None of those postures are made easier when your way of life is implicitly and explicitly understood as sort of culture and financial backwater, to be avoided at all costs. If we want to start thinking about how to make it easier for single people to find financial stability, we have to start to understand single life as something that's not just thinkable, not just survivable, but actually desirable. So this is where capitalism comes in. You know, our economy is based on people being in debt. You go to college, you get married, you buy a house, you buy a car. And if we stop falling into this trap, the money stops flowing and the fat cats get restless. Right now, that idea is too threatening to the institution of marriage, and by extension, a pillar of the United States as we know it. The integrity of that pillar has been crumbling for years as marriage, even with its myriad financial and cultural benefits, has ceased to prove its worth. Today, people want options for partnerships that are more flexible and more like actual partnerships. You can cultivate that within a marriage, sure, but perhaps, ironically, it often takes more work than trying to figure out on your own with the rules outside of marriage. Now, marriage is the foundation of the U.S., so it's only natural that they target single people and incentivize married couples. There are so many routes to and reasons for arriving at the single or solo living life. And more people are living it than ever. 28% of Americans live alone. In 1960, it was 13%. 1980 was 23%. 11 million households are headed by a single parent. That's tripled since 1965. 31% of U.S. adults identify as single. That's defined as not married, living with a partner, in a committed relationship. Now, these numbers are very telling, especially when you say 28% of Americans live alone. That's surprising and a bit sad, actually. Some people crave something more than what marriage can provide. They wonder what it would be like to create a small system of care for one another that goes beyond one individual. What if we could figure out how to acknowledge that the most important person in our lives isn't always someone bound to us by family or sexual relationship? How can we think about housing, healthcare, and caregiving and work in ways that actually acknowledge and actively include single and solo living people, not as afterthoughts, but as the third, if not more, of the population that we are? Well, I hope that that's what MGTOW is to you guys, a place where we can go and hear stories from men who face the same struggles we all do. We're definitely not alone. In 2019, there were 116 million men in the United States, and nearly 40% of them are single. People will continue to bemoan the erosion of the traditional family and the decline in the birth rate, because that's what people do when they feel the world is changing and they personally are not. Maybe out of fear, maybe too out of the lack of imagination. We already a country full of people forging new institutions or partnerships of care, parenting. Imagine what we would look like. Imagine the ways in which we'd thrive if we decide to actually support them. So, MGTOW is a result of the erosion of the family. And instead of bashing us for it, let us go, and we'll be back when we're ready or when you guys wake up. But for whatever reason a person decides to abandon social norms, he doesn't have to be alone. There are millions of us who are fed up with being used by women and oppressed by a corrupt economic system. Our weapon is our ability to walk away. They know it, and it scares the hell out of them. But anyway, this is just my opinion. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.